We are now talking to former Sabres and Senators winger and Sabres color commentator, Mr. Rob Ray. What's going on, Rob?
Not much, guys. How are you doing? Just hanging out at the ballpark here, finally getting back at it. So,
Oh, well, I'll tell you this right now. I love baseball, especially right now. We're happy that baseball is coming back. Maybe a 60-game 60-game run and a playoff run for some of the Yankee fans out here and the Met fans. But, Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career with the Sabres and the Senators? I was a big fan of yours. You were a rough player, a vicious player on the ice. I was a hockey player. Tell us a little bit about your career and how you grew from a hockey player to a color commentator.
Well, you know, coming up through, obviously you never played the style that you had to play when you get to the NHL. And, you know, as you go and work your way up through junior and then get into pro, you start specializing a little bit too. So, you know, when I got to Buffalo here, and I got sent to Roch my first year, they more or less said, hey, there's an opportunity for you to take that next step in Buffalo. This is what they need. Are you willing to do it? And I'm like, show me, teach me how to do it. And, you know, fortunately, a year later, I get my chance and, you know, it worked out for me. But, you know, I got a chance to play here an awful long time, and it's a great town, great fans. You know, it's my home now, too. This is where I've stayed and made my home. So, you know, it was the greatest opportunity in the world. My hometown was only 3.5 hours away, so my family and friends could be a part of my whole career, so it was fantastic as well. But, you know, I got the opportunity when I was finished playing to step into the color commentating side. And when Harry Neale retired, I said, why not? Rick Jeanneret said he'd continue to work as long as I worked with him, and here we are today. I don't know how many years later. He said he was only going to work a couple more years, and I said, okay, I'll do it with you. But it's been 10 or 12 years since, and loving it. You know what? It's a no better job because you're a part of it. You're around the team all the time. You're traveling with the team. You're doing all that kind of stuff that you normally do as a player. But I don't have to be in shape anymore. I don't have to go to practices anymore. I don't have to do all that crap that goes along with being a player. And now I just sit back and enjoy the games.
So Errol was mentioning how you were a tough guy. I mean, when did that come about in your career? Was it something that you were just naturally a tough guy based on your personality? Was it something that a coach told you to lay on him to be tough and be this type of player, be this type of grinder type mentality?
Well, in junior, everybody played that role. You know, everybody. When I grew up in the Ontario League back in the 80s, then, you know, it didn't matter if you're a star player or you're, you know, whatever. Everybody played hard and tough, and, you know, you kind of got the groundwork for it there. But when I got to, like I said, when I got to Buffalo and then went to Roch, John Van Boxmeer was my coach, and he said, hey, look, this is what you're going to do. Your best chance to make that next step to the NHL is play this role. And that year in Rochester, I think I had 46 fighting majors. I had 446 minutes in penalties. And out of those 46 fights, I might have won 6 and got my ass kicked numerous times. But you kind of learn to trade. You learn to trade. You learn how to do it. And it took, you know, 5 or 6 years in the NHL of actually doing it to be comfortable doing it and feeling that, hey, I can do this as a regular role. So I was fortunate that I was able to, you know, catch on how to do it. I had really good direction when I was young. When I started playing, Rick Dudley was our coach, and Duds played a hard game when he played in the NHL, and he respected it, he understood it, and he taught me a lot of when to and when not to, and when to use it as a motivation thing, and when to use it as a, you know, looking out for your own players. So there's a lot of different angles to it that he helped me out with, and it made a huge difference. So, you know, I appreciate all the direction you got over the years from some very good guys.
We are talking to former Sabres and Senators winger and Sabres color commentator, Rob Ray. Now, Rob, I look at the NHL, the speed of the game has completely transitioned. When I watched the game more in depth, because I played in the game in the 90s and the early 2000s, the game was all about goaltending. You had Dominic Hasek, John Van Beesbrook, Mike Richter, Tom Barrasso, and then you had enforcers like Marty McSorley and Keith Primo and all the different guys we've seen over the years. When you look at the game and the speed of the game with guys like Sidney Crosby and Malkin and even Connor McGregor, Connor McDavid, when you think of that, what do you think about the transition of the game now from then?
Well, I think that you've got to give a lot more credit to the guys that played in the past for their speed. You know, they were kind of hampered with the red line. It kind of slowed that pace down a little bit. Now with no red line, these guys are able to actually show their speed a little more and use it. But, you know, back in the day, guys like Pat LaFontaine and Alexander Mogilny and guys like that, they could fly. And they did a heck of a job. But you didn't maybe notice it quite as much because because they were kind of hampered by that red line. But you know what? It's an exciting game. It's a fast, probably more overall skilled from top to bottom now than what it was back then. But, you know, it comes down to sometimes as a fan and, you know, in a place like this, they appreciate that hard grinding and that physical play and the odd fight here and there. So sometimes it's great, but sometimes it's not. You got to remember, too, it's an entertainment factor that, you know, you want to see everything that's part of the game and everything that's supposed to be involved in the game. And sometimes now these guys only think it's supposed to be about speed and nothing else. So, you know, it gets kind of wide open and I'm not saying boring sometimes, but it just kind of takes the fun out of it a little bit sometimes too. So, you know, I kind of lean back to the older days when you got a good combination of all that.
Do you think there's a big difference in refereeing as well from the 90s era of hockey, the 80s era of hockey when you play to today? And if so, does that really help? Is it really tendered more towards the speed of the game, the skill players that you mentioned?
Well, you know, the guys coming up through now aren't taught to play a physical game. They're not taught to play a hard game. You know, in junior now, if you get 3 fights in a season, you're suspended for a game. So nobody wants to do that. So, and college kids, they're not playing that same type of game. So it is way different once they get here. But the referees in our day, you had a good relationship with them. You could talk to them. You know, they were, you almost created that friendship with them. Now, not so much. You know, you see guys go over to try to talk to a ref now, and it's like, hey, leave me alone. Don't want to hear anything about it. And there's a lot less you can get away with now and a lot less communication between the player and the referee. So is it good? No, I think it was better when you had that opportunity to create that relationship with the referees and, you know, you had that respect for them. In turn, they had it for you, too. So now there's too much of a wall, too much of a barrier in between the two.
As you guys know, we are talking to color commentator for the Buffalo Sabres, Rob Ray. Now, Rob, there's a lot of stories coming out of Buffalo that Jack Eichel is not happy. And this is one of the best young talents in the NHL right now. And you look at some of the young players that they have, they're building. They've drafted very, very high in the last couple of years. What are your thoughts to this roster moving forward? And do you think Jack Eichel wants to stay here, or do you think he is eventually going to be traded? Because we've seen a lot of good players years and years, you know, with Michael Pekka, even Dominik Hasek, all have gone from one team to another. Do you think that Jack Eichel will eventually be out with the Buffalo Sabres?
No, I don't think that's the case. You know, I know Jack and Coach now, Ralph Kruger, have got an excellent relationship. And that was the big part. In the past, maybe not so much with the guys that were coaching in the past. But Jack's a competitor. He wants to win. And I appreciated when he came out at the end of the year and said, hey, we got to be better. We got to do better. We've got a lot of things better. Because that kind of puts a little pressure, too, on management, ownership, and that to maybe make those changes and do what they need to do to get better. So, no, I don't think Jack's in a position where he wants out. I think Jack wants to succeed here. He knows what it can be like here if they get this team rolling. And I think he wants to be a part of that. You know, he's grown. He's a mature kid now. When he first got here, maybe not so much, but he has matured a lot as a leader, as a player, and as a teammate. So, you know, I think it's just more now people making a big thing about it because of everything that's going on here, that, you know, Jack, all of a sudden, he's the guy that wants out because he spoke up. I think he spoke up because he's looking for change, and he's desperate because he wants to win and succeed.
Talk about the play that you saw of Rasmus Dahlin in his first couple years in the league so far. Number 1 overall pick. I think he played obviously a full year and then the shortened year we had this year. What has impressed you most about his game so far, and where could he still grow?
Well, he's a mature kid, and, you know, he's not a big kid. And when you get teams that concentrate on him, lean on him a little bit, play physical on him, he has a difficult time. And that has a lot to do with his age and his body build at this point. He hasn't got the muscle on his body that he will have here in the next few years. But he's such an intelligent player. And when he's got the puck, his head's never looking down. It's always up. And he's very shifty. He's got courage to jump up in the play and know that he can get back into the play. If something bad happens in the offensive zone, he can get back in time. So this kid is far and above his years. But, you know, he's got a long ways to go, too. Defensively, you know, he's got some, you know, challenges so far. But when you played your whole career, you know, especially in a European league when it's strictly offense and that's all you're really thinking about a lot of the times, that's something you got to learn. And playing defense in the NHL is the hardest position to master, and it takes time. And I just think you're going to see a consistent improvement in this kid. But I'll tell you what, in the next few years, you're going to see him dominating, in this game, because he does have the smarts, he's got the speed, he's got the ability, and he's got the courage to try things. So, and a good kid, like, I'll tell you what, you're not going to find a better guy. He's so nice, and he just wants to do the right things, and he wants to do whatever he can for the people of the town. So I think that's the biggest thing, when you get these guys actually involved with the people and getting to know them and getting to know the town, and wanting to help make a difference outside the rink, and he's been doing that fantastic.